I think we are on the cusp of something here. We've seen this much, the sliver of the pinky of what AI is capable of when it comes to generating data. And I think we're about to see an absolute explosion of data on a scale that we've never seen before.
There is something called shit in, shit out, right?
Yes.
It's been around for a while.
Basically,
Never heard of
I don't want to be a scaremonger here, but we're getting into territories we're not ready to deal with yet as a society. We're going to see that by 2030. It's going to punch us in the mouth because we're not ready for it.
Because the economy is slowing down, or at least it's taking a bump, however you want to say it. And I think if you don't use technology the way it's supposed to be, and you don't really change the things that you do into, as you said, adopting the new things, you won't have that much outcome.
You need to start from scratch and sort of take a step back and go, okay, we're about to walk into a world of data that we have never experienced before and can't even begin to imagine on our wildest dreams.
Hello and welcome to this podcast, and welcome to 2025. My word, who knew? Okay. 2024 is over. 2024 is over. 2025 is now with us. So once again, we are joined by, we said Techarati last time. I'm going with Techno Mage this time. The data center dude, Nick Howell from NetApp. How are you doing? All right?
Tony, I'm doing great. Thank you so much. I'm very excited that 2024 is in the back burner, is in behind us, and we can talk about other things going forward. It's been a hell of a year.
Yeah, and we have our two questions as always. And this year, we're going to talk primarily about what we're excited about, what's coming up, what's on the horizon that we think is going to be really cool. So I suppose without further ado, Christian Lehrer this time. What have you got on your I don't know, coming up?
Wow. I don't know if it will be exciting, but I'm really interested to see how the AI hype is going this year. I have mixed feelings. I really have mixed feelings. I heard first rumblings about companies really accepting that the outcome is not what they expected. And I think it will be really interesting to see which companies can use AI and make real use of it, and which are not able to use that tool as they are not able to use a lot of the other tools that have been developed in the past year. So that will be really interesting. And combined with that, market share of some large tech organizations, really interested to see how that works out.
So is this like, are you thinking like adoption? So for example, obviously cloud adoption would be a good thing sort of 10 or 15 years ago. Everyone was like, oh, cloud this, cloud that, cloud the other. But in reality, only 20 or 30% of businesses really adopted cloud over that period of time. It's not like everybody's in the cloud now. They're not. So are you feeling AI is going to go the same way?
I think we're in a little bit different position this time, because the economy is slowing down, or at least it's taking a bump, however you want to say it. And I think if you don't use technology the way it's supposed to be, and you don't really change the things that you do into, as you said, adopting the new things, you won't have that much outcome. And when a CFO sees, okay, we have that much cost for a tool that doesn't bring us why use it? So maybe cost cut on that page first. Obviously, after the employees, that's for sure. I think that will unfortunately remain this year also. But
it's that harsh, possibly.
Yeah, sorry, I'm a little bit negative on that one. But I think there will be exceptions, companies and individuals who will absolutely drive the AI train, and they will know how to not only steer it, but they will know how to lay the rails for it. And I think that will absolutely also happen this year.
Yeah, agreed. Nick, what do you think? What's on your radar?
At the risk of spoiling my my upcoming YouTube video on the Data Center Dude channel for the crazy hot predictions that I like to do every year.
Nice.
And also, I want to preface this by saying I recognize that what I'm about to say might be a little self-serving to NetApp, but that's what we're here for. I think we're getting ready to go. I think companies are getting ready to get a very big wake-up call of how dirty their data is. Let me qualify that. 2 years ago, I opened up ChatGPT for the first time. and I told it to write a bedtime story.
I'm going to say a bedroom story. Christian's had some of those. They were a bit dodgy.
Yeah, this we got to keep it rated properly for the podcast, right? Like a children's bedtime story, and just make it up about. I love playing World of Warcraft, so make it about World of Warcraft, and it just spits out this story, and I'm just like, that's actually really good. Okay. Well, can we write a book about it? My point is like, for the last 2 years, I feel like we've all been in this state of euphoria with ChatGPT as end users, as consumers of AI as a product, because OpenAI did a really good job of productizing AI and the mechanisms of it underneath the covers. And everybody all of a sudden went, hey, I want that for my business. I want that for my company. How do I, but I don't want to put my IP out on the public ChatGPT kind of stuff because I don't want to train ChatGPT on. So there's been this kind of, this angst, this tug of war.
Yep.
So we've seen the rise of RAG, retrieval augmented generation. And I think coming into the new year, I think we're going to see that really ramp. But what it's going to expose is how dirty everyone's data is under the covers. And it's going to be embarrassing. It's because the people that we've seen try to do it so far have not had a lot of success, and it's no fault of the technology and it's no fault of the implementations. It is the fault of the data. You have not been good curators and librarians of your data, my friends.
You have to curate what you want to learn. That's the whole point.
There is something called shit and shit out, right?
Yes,
never heard of that. Basically, never heard of that.
So I think going into 2025, I think the big conversation will be around RAG, NVIDIA's NeMo solutions, things like that are going to continue to hold sway for enterprise. I think we're going to continue to see the rise of end user endpoint usage of GPT-based AGI type of solutions that are out there. But also, I think we're going to see a very behind the scenes, most likely, the priority is going to become data classification. I think we're going to see the metadata management become the most important thing before the companies will fall over backwards and over their heels into when they realize that their RAG solution is not going to work because they haven't been good librarians and stewards of their data over the years.
And they need to do, and it's a constant job as well. They can't just issue it one day and say, that's it. Okay, that'll do forever. They've got to constantly update it and make sure that it's always trained on the latest information. Otherwise, they'll never get that information out again when they ask questions.
Yes, you need to have someone in your organization or multiple people in your organization that are rabid librarians, folder naming conventions, file naming conventions, tagging, metadata. They need to be obsessed with it because you're not going to get your entire staff to do it. All you need to do is look at search engine history and you can see like what people search for and okay, we need to clean that up a little bit, right? So you can see this kind of wave of classification and metadata management coming. We've sort of taken it for granted. Just, I can stick a tag on it. It's going to become paramount for anything to do with any sort of BI, business intelligence, or any sort of RAG solution where your end users in your company or even your customers are using your AI chatbot to get documentation recommendations or whatever that implementation might look like. If you don't have that data cleaned up and classified properly and organized and tagged properly, you're not going to have a good time. So from the enterprise, that's where I see 2025 going when it comes to AI.
So I smell a business opportunity here.
Yeah.
Build the AI system for tagging all that stuff. Isn't that
maybe
easy?
Or I don't know what sort of like a geek for sale, that sort of stuff. Is that the other possibility?
For any enterprising consultants out there, these sound like some really Y2K era kind of engagements where you go in and clean up somebody else's mess.
Oh no!
OCD
but you also have
to
press the stickers.
That's the field I come from. Is that I did some really nice, fruitful engagements that literally required me to run a VB script for about 10 minutes, but it was a 2-day engagement. So I'm saying for those of you that understand,
stick the sticker, right?
Yeah, exactly. You get the certificate that you hand them to say you're now Y2K compliant, right? For basically doing a couple of Windows updates. But no, I see an opportunity here for people that are very into this kind of thing to either there could be new roles created. out of this. I think you could have a librarian, a curator, a data management type of senior engineer role, not just for prompting, but for standardization of all of your data classification internally. Is going to be a big deal over the next couple of years.
With most businesses, data for classification as when you get to a certain level, data for classification becomes hugely important to the way that your business works anyway, just to keep your billing, your ordering, your the way that you manage your quoting, everything that you do related to how your business works has to be classified in the same way. And quite often they're related to completely different applications. You'll have a different finance application to your billing application, which will be different to your quoting application, which will be different to your, internal management applications. So, having data classification is amazingly important these days and is only going to get more so by the sounds of it.
Yeah. And don't forget the security implications of that, right? Really, who is getting access to what? How do we handle data exfiltration? How do we handle things going somewhere where they shouldn't belong? I think that's also really, really being more and more important.
Yeah, that should be done together. That's also a part of the curating part, right? So make sure that you don't put sensitive data into the RAG databases because someone else might get access to it then, because it's overriding your roles, right? If you feed it into a RAG database, anyone with access to that can ask for it and possibly get information they shouldn't have. If you don't classify it properly. So it's a security risk as well as a management kind of opportunity to reuse your existing stuff. It's also a possible security issue as well.
So there's a lot of people who are going to think, oh, this RAG's a great idea. Let's just throw all of our documentation on it, blat, and then we can do a chatbot that looks at it, right? And the answer is, yeah, you can, but you won't get much decent information out of it because all your old documentation will contradict your new documentation, and your new version may have a completely different method of doing some things to how it used to. So all of your documentation, if it's not up to date, contradicts itself, and you don't know what the chatbot's going to give you.
I'll put this in perspective with some real life. We recently, this fall, as August, September, we launched DocBot at NetApp. It spent a year training, and that was just on ONTAP. Okay. So to get to a point where someone in your accounting department can prompt an AI to compare tax returns from 2018 to 2022, like that's going to take some librarian level curation. Like you're going to have to get into some naming conventions, folder structures. You're going to have to do the training on it. Like it takes work. It took us a year just to do our ONTAP documentation. We're working on all of the other stuff now, and DocBot will continue to evolve. But it took a year just for ONTAP.
And is that because of the fact that you've over the years changed the name of things? So one person who's writing the documentation will call it a volume. The other person will call it a LUN. Another person will call it a file system, and therefore the bot has to differentiate between those various elements.
Well, a LUN is not a volume, kids.
Well, no, but a LUN can be within the volume.
Sure, but if you ask ChatGPT the wrong thing, it's going to tell you the wrong thing.
Yeah.
So there's a responsibility of training of the end users to use it as well. Much like phishing emails that we were talking about in the previous episode, like there is a responsibility of IT departments and various departments to do some training as these kinds of things are implemented. But for our end users that are out there using ONTAP on a day-to-day basis, I'd like to believe that they understand the difference between a volume and a LUN. However, there are brand new customers every day that are coming into our Discord community, for example, and like, hey guys, brand new, just got a C250 and wow, I have no idea what to do with it. And we're like, you're in the right place, man. So there's going to be new people in a learning curve when it comes to this. And this is not something that's going to happen in a year or two. This is going to take a decade. This is going to take a generation for this to become sort of day-to-day usage and comfortable, because there's a lot of cleanup work to do. Matt Watts there in the UK is talking about something now where he has 68% of data that's generated is never accessed again. Think about that. And since we're talking about AI specifically, I think over this is one of my hot takes for the year. Over the last 20-ish years, I remember my first 1 gig hard drive. Do you guys remember your first 1 gig hard drive? About 2000? Since then, we've had social networks. We've had the rise of 24-hour news cycles. We've had all kinds of stuff, just data being generated constantly, right? We now know that there's about a few exabytes, if not zettabytes, worth of data worldwide total. So we've evaluated that 68% of that not only is cold data, but it's never been accessed or used since it was created. I think we are on the cusp of something here. We've seen this much, the sliver of the pinky of what AI is capable of when it comes to generating data. And I think we're about to see an absolute explosion of data on a scale that we've never seen before. And that you're seeing 60 terabyte and 128 terabyte hard drives and SSDs, 2.5-inch SSDs that are 128 terabyte. It's insane, the developments that are coming. But I think we're about to see an explosion of data. We're going to need new CPU. Finally, Intel got into chiplet design, so we can really start scaling these things. We're going to need new CPUs, GPU designs. We're going to need new data centers. We're going to need new power delivery. Like all of this, we need to start from scratch and sort of take a step back and go, okay, we're about to walk into a world of data that we have never experienced before and can't even begin to imagine on our wildest dreams that's about to be created. Once companies really harness the power of this thing, the generative data that's going to be created is going to be in magnitudes that I can't even describe right now. That's my big prediction for 25. And we're just on the cusp of it.
Jeez H. We all know that one of the things that isn't really well known or is maybe not thought about is the fact that everyone knows that AI takes CPUs and GPUs, but what they don't realize is the amount of storage necessary to be able to train. Because the storage to train is massive.
Not only the training data, but also the output it generates, right? You have to, right. You're going to store that as well. So you need a massive amount of data to train it on, but you'll also generate massive amounts of data based on that training data. So it's growing exponentially.
So what we're saying is everybody who's gone to DALL-E and said, show me a picture of a cat playing with a fiddle while standing on top of a mountain, send. All of those pictures have still been stored everywhere. Yeah. They've still got them. And they've still got them from about 2 years after when they were originally created.
Yeah, it's all in Azure.
And never accessed again.
Yeah, that was part of the $10 billion deal that OpenAI did with Microsoft a couple years ago. Is that it's a lot of it's Azure credits to back end OpenAI and Sora, the newest video one that's come out. That, by the way, I'm having a lot of fun watching the Sora stuff on TikTok. Some of the brain rot stuff that people are doing is hilarious. But that's the kind of nonsense that I'm talking about that's sitting there chewing up storage for brain rot videos on TikTok. We haven't even begun to talk about like legitimate Hollywood feature films that are going to be created with it in the next 3 to 5 years. We haven't even talked about the new Pixar movie that's going to consume, a petabyte just because it was generated with AI. Like we are getting into, I don't want to be a scaremonger here, but we're getting into territories we're not ready to deal with yet as a society, as a technological society yet. And we're going to see that by 2030. It's going to punch us in the mouth because we're not ready for it. The main thing being power delivery. We don't have the power. Data centers around the world right now consume 8% of the entire world's power. Just data centers. That's not counting everybody's mobiles. That's not counting laptops and home footprints and things like that. We have got to, one of my other hot takes is I think nuclear is about to go through a whole renaissance. I think it's coming back in a very big way. We don't have the coal. We don't have the fossil fuels. We don't have the water. We can't desalinate the oceans to power AI. Like there's not enough hydroelectric power generation out there to power one, much less hundreds, if not thousands of these kinds of footprints. So the answer is nuclear, and we need to accept that, and we need to move on from it. Microsoft's buying 3 Mile Island. I'm not sure that's the best idea. Yeah. I'm not sure
that'll make it interesting Patch Tuesday. But
they better rename it. That much is for certain.
Right. Let's maybe 3 Mile Island doesn't need to be powered back up, guys. I know it's been a few decades, but maybe maybe hang on. Let's see if we can figure something else out.
What are you going to call it
Let's
instead?
not forget the large fusion reactor we have there above our heads.
Oh yes, there's a massive energy. Yeah, that's very true. Yes, no, I do agree. I have sort of those sort of panels as well. But at the end of the day, it's not out all the time, unfortunately, especially not in the UK. And the amount that the battery cost to be able to, for it to feed into, so that I can actually use it any time it's cloudy is quite expensive. So yeah, that's a difficult one as well. So I
don't expect that to remain that way for very long. I think we're going to see power storage become another big thing. We're seeing out here in Las Vegas, where I'm at, we have that giant solar farm that's out in the middle of the desert. Both Nevada and California are building these giant, they look like rows of semi trucks, like lorries, as you would say in the UK, giant trailer containers, 20 by 40 containers, but they're just batteries. And there's hundreds of them in this field, rows and rows, and it's battery storage of solar generated power. We are stockpiling power for this. And it's weird to say that we're now having to build our own custom batteries and stuff like that. But again, there's another finite resource. There's only so much cobalt and lithium in the world. What's next, right? It's nuclear, guys. It's going to be nuclear.
I think so too. There is basically no way we can do it without it.
Agreed.
Can we have an arc reactor? I mean, surely I'm not the only one who wants an arc reactor. That sort of stuff. That'd be good.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want one in your house, but what you could have in your house is I gave this one away on another show the other day. Imagine if you had a very small fusion reactor about the size of a mouse in your garage, and it powered everything in the house. And every one of your neighbors had a small little compact fusion reactor that was enough power, to give you 100, 200 watts off your mains. But it could also charge your car. It could also collect power for other things. Like when you modernize grids like that to where the power generation happens locally in the homes or in the locales. I'm not saying every house, but maybe a neighborhood or maybe a small footprint in Cambridge maybe just has as well thing has a whole one nuclear fusion reactor. Fusion has been proven at this point. If we can ever get to cold fusion, like that's going to be the game changer. We'll see if that happens. But traditional nuclear, as we've come to know it, with giant monolithic cooling towers, and they look scary, right? There's nobody wants that in their backyard. But fusion presents some interesting new opportunities. What if a data center could have its own fusion reactor? Would it still need the 8 to 10 giant diesel generators outside? Probably not. I don't know.
No, agreed. But obviously we're not there yet. We haven't managed to build those
exactly.
yet.
10 plus years away from that.
Well, hopefully so. I mean, this is it.
Let's use the AI for something sensible there.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, this is it.
Dear ChatGPT, please invent cold fusion.
Okay, there you go.
Can we have cold fusion,
70%.
Please?
Just try it.
Okay, short of fixing the world's power grids, Christian, what else have you got for us for this coming year?
I guess it's kind of related in a way. But I think that sometime in 2025, we're going to see something really interesting around quantum computing as well.
Yeah, they've got a new chip, haven't they? Google have just done a new chip.
There's stuff happening now that might be really, really both interesting and scary as hell.
Mostly scary.
Yes. And it's also going to require a lot of power. Yes.
No, so, I don't care about encryption and cracking passwords and stuff like that. I'm scared about AI superintelligence. So we have AGI right now. I'm worried about ASI because quantum will be the thing that enables it to get to a point where we can't slow it down or stop it. And we have to be real careful about putting some guardrails in place. Yes, this is the Skynet doomsday story. All joking and memes aside. Like this is the kind of thing where it can be a runaway AI. And if we empower it with a quantum computer that we don't have in mass, we can't combat that.
So that's kind of the long run of it, I guess. But I think that in 2025, we're going to be able to access some sort of quantum computing in some sort of way of fashion. Perhaps something like ChatGPT did, right?
Yeah.
All of a sudden it was there and it was available. If Google managed to do their thing with that, it might, IBM as well, doing a lot of stuff around quantum computing, right?
IBM, I kind of trust about it. What I don't like about Google is that they bought a company called DeepMind about 10 years ago, who's teaching AI to play StarCraft.
Yeah.
Okay. And Google bought them, and they now have the Google Brain division where they're basically trying to create cognitive reasoning and stuff, basically emulating the human brain in the digital space and stuff like that. And you've got the China Brain Project, you've got the European Brain Project as well. Like we're all doing this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
When you give it something like what Google just announced with their new quantum solution, and now you hand it to Google Brain, and that's been training on StarCraft for 10 years. Like, I don't want that. I like the idea of quantum and entanglement and superpositions and things like that to help us solve some of the universe's mysteries. I don't need to hand it to something that's been doing nothing but playing StarCraft for the last 10 years.
So what you're saying is destroy the enemy, destroy the enemy, destroy the enemy. Is that pretty much StarCraft as far as
the enemy's the one that wants to shut me down. Human race. So, guys, it sounds crazy, but it's not that crazy.
No, the initial problem will be, though, the encryption part of everything, right?
Sure.
Because once quantum computing actually breaks the encryption we rely on today, we have to replace it with something else. So we have to do it before that, right? And that powers everything. I mean, it's online banking. It's every transaction ever, everywhere is based on that encryption. And once
TLS.
that's broken, once that's broken, society is pretty much broken.
Wow. Okay. I've got to say, it's taken a very negative turn. I mean, we were just talking about 2025, and so far the whole banking industry's gone. We've got no power. There's an AI supercomputer. What is this all in 2025? Seriously?
We're just the beginning.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But we're going
this is just January, Tony. This is,
we're gonna see the start of this in 2025. I'm pretty sure of.
Yeah, no, I would say that the one thing that we aren't very good at is putting guardrails. And just to go back to your point, Nick, there's too many businesses, there's too much money, there's too many different people, and governments are too slow. Yeah, and they don't understand it. With all due respect, I don't understand it, and I think your average politician just has got less of a clue than I have, having worked in the industry for many years. So
governments might be too slow in some areas, but in other areas, the governments are the ones pushing this, right? So everything is not the US or the European Union. There are someone else on this planet that might have different plans for this.
Who are you talking?
They're not interested in those
who else?
guardrails.
I mean, come on.
Japan's doing some. Japan and South Korea are doing some cool stuff.
I'm having a go. Seeing as everything that I mentioned to you guys has gone into doom, gloom, the whole world's ending. Let's take it back a fraction. Let's take it back. So one of the things that I do think this is quite interesting. I think this year we're going to sell an awful lot of AI neural processing unit laptops, and it's going to be very interesting as to how that changes how people work on their computer. So. We've all got one of those, but they're releasing PCs now with Copilot Plus built into it, and you're literally going to have a computer, maybe June 2025, whereby you load up Windows, you start work, and the computer is then looking at the context of what you're doing and making suggestions almost in real time. And we're not talking Clippy here. It looks like you're writing a letter. Can I help
Honestly,
you?
I think the whole Copilot thing, I think it's a missed opportunity to revive Clippy. It should have been Clippy AI or something like that.
Should have done that. That would have been really
Rocky
good.
the dog.
Yeah.
But that's going to be an interesting thing.
What was the purple ape in the 2000s? The chimp thing. I can't remember what it was. It was some shareware thing. I can't remember.
I don't know. I liked Rocky the dog. I had him for ages. But there you go.
I think you're right. I think we're going to see the rise of end user
Bonzi Buddy.
Bonzi Buddy. That's right.
Yes.
Bonzi Buddy?
Yes.
Okay. Wow.
Anyway, that just completely sidetracked.
How to get him off track. There you go.
I think we're going to see the rise of end user sort of adoption and understanding of AI, maybe without even understanding what they're doing.
Exactly. Thank you.
And because I think what happened with the BYOD movement in enterprise IT, it was end user demand. What happens when end users get these new Copilot laptops you were just referring to, Tony?
Yeah.
Start using them at home and then come into their IT department and demand to be able to use them in the office. This is how things change in corporate enterprise IT, is usually driven by end user demand.
Back to these again.
Right.
Everyone had an iPad and said, I want to use this in the office.
Being able to connect it to the Wi-Fi, being able to put Outlook on your iPhone. Simple things that in 2008, we were just like, hell no, you're not doing that. But now it's table stakes. It's completely because we have the tools to manage it. So I think we're going to see this end user push for some of these consumer level AI tools like Copilot, like ChatGPT, to be able to be used in their day-to-day work.
Yeah, but I'm seeing that. I updated my iPhone. I have an iPhone 16 now. Updated it to iOS 18.2, I think was the latest version. I can now go in my Notes app and have it write something based off of ChatGPT directly on my phone without having to log in anywhere, doing anything at all. Everything goes through Apple services and then to ChatGPT, and then it fills out my notes. So as I guess everyone who has a video podcast does, they check themselves, right? So I had it, who is Christian Moon, the virtualization guy, right? And it gave me 4 pages of a lot of stuff that was correct. Where I work, the vExpert things, conferences I've attended or spoken at, and whatever. And it wrote a full-on length text on my phone while I was sitting in my couch doing nothing else. I didn't log in anywhere.
That's quite impressive.
So I have Gen AI on my phone wherever I am, able to rewrite texts that I write myself or generate new ones. And as Nick said, people are going to come back to their employers and pretty much demand that this is something we need to have inside of our own company as well.
But it's the reason that iPads became popular and the reason that that sort of thing took over is because the financial director comes in and goes, I've got this for Christmas. I want to use it. And the IT guys don't go no to the financial director or to the MD.
Yes, we did.
Well, we might have
where to stick that.
Then we immediately got told, no, you're going to do what I say. I'm your boss, not the other way around. So that's the reason it changed.
I can tell you my experience as sort of the lead senior engineer of like data center operations and stuff at that time. In 2008, when iPads came out in 2010, I think. But iPhones were 2007. So we started getting the iPhones. People had their BlackBerries, and that was fine. That was RIMS network, and we didn't have to deal with that. And that was fine, right? And then you had the Palm Pres, and it was the same thing. Like they had their own cell network stuff. But when iPhones came and we had Wi-Fi and there was the rise of that kind of stuff, like there was and they had Microsoft Office had apps for Outlook and things like you could tie your Outlook into the native mail app on iPhones. That's stuff that we had to allow. We had to buy a bunch of iPhones and evaluate it and make sure that it was secure and do all that. So when finance director comes in and goes, I want to check my mail on my iPhone, we go, hang on, what does that mean? So when he comes in with his iPad and he says, I want to be able to use this, how? Why? So I think AI is it's gonna happen the same thing with generative AI. I think we're gonna see this consumer tool make its way into the enterprise in a BYOD fashion that's going to force companies to begin to use AGI in ways that they hadn't dreamed of yet. And I think that's a good thing. I think that's going to force them out of their comfort zones. We've had a lot of people that have been sitting around on their VMware installations for the last 10 years going, this is all working great. I don't need to do anything. I think they're about to get a rude wake-up call when they're going to have to refresh stuff. They're going to have to change the way that they do things, deploy systems, all of that. And I think generative AI is going to really be a proponent of that, of the accelerant of that.
But it's going to tie back to all the power requirements and everything. And that's going to be a bigger issue than implementing a new device that has its own battery and whatever. Yeah. So it's going to be a different kind of challenge for the IT administrators out there, because it's going to have further repercussions than supporting a new sort of device thing. It's going to be more fundamentally changing than that.
I'm going to say, can I throw another one? And this actually maybe still goes on to something that Nick's maybe looked at more than anything else. One of the other things I had on mind was evolving storage efficiency. Because I think one of the things that we've seen over the last few years is there has been, there's been capacity storage, there has been solid state storage. Solid state storage equals fast, capacity storage equals big. And that's pretty much it. But that's kind of going now. I mean, the new C-Series array from NetApp, they've gone to multiple generations of that now. And while that was only released late 2013, the
2023.
That's now
not 2013.
Sorry, 2023. But the point is that's evolving again, isn't it? They've just released a new selection of versions of that. And we're now at the stage
really just
whereby
to update the internals to PCIe Gen 5 with the new hardware platforms. So,
but no spinning drives anymore. So far less energy usage. Yeah, but you do have those. But for the C series, then to all intents and purposes, it's a solid state disk, isn't it? It's a QLC NAND flash jobby. So essentially, we're talking higher capacity just in solid state drive. So we're at the stage where we're saying, well, actually, capacity drives don't need to be spinning anymore. We can just use high capacity flash instead. That is not wildly expensive. Is that fair?
I'm going to give you the classic IT answer. Anybody want to take a guess?
It depends.
It depends. So as long as there are still spinners out there, there's going to be customers that want spinners. I don't care what Pure Storage tells you. There's going to be a demand out there for spinning drives.
Fair enough.
And there continues to be a demand out there for them. Now, is it less than it was 10 years ago? Absolutely. Absolutely it is. Is it a diminishing kind of thing? Yes. And the price of spinners reflects that, right? As the capacities get larger, we're seeing 22, 28 terabyte spinner, 3.5-inch spinners now from Seagate, Western Digital, etc. That's insane. I don't want to sit and wait for a 3.5-inch drive to rebuild 30 terabytes. Like that's going to take weeks.
That's gonna take.
Throw the drive away and just replace it. Right? It's just at a certain point, like don't even try anymore. They become so disposable because they've been commoditized. I feel like we're getting to a similar point with SSDs. Specifically around TLC and QLC flash, because you're right. We have entered the hybrid world where there is TLC performance and capacity. Those are really only the two vectors you need to think about outside of the modularity of your IO networking connectivity type of stuff, but performance and capacity. And I think we've really hit that sweet spot with TLC and with QLC. Now, what's next? I got to be careful. I can't talk about that much stuff, but like, what's next is fun because they're already working on the next PCI specs. Gen 7 is already being worked on. Like 2 years from now, like this, we're going to listen back to this conversation and go, them guys and their 60 terabyte drives.
I remember way back when I was a Compaq server.
That is a while back.
Yeah, Compaq server certified ASE or whatever the certification was.
Did you also have your Novell certification?
No, I don't. I have my
about the same time frame.
Windows NT4. I did back then, but yeah,
I was 2000. I didn't have the NT4 one.
Right. So I then went to this Compaq kind of get together for Norwegian certified technicians, right? And they had flown over a guy from Houston, from Compaq in Houston, and he showed us the first beta version of their blade chassis.
Yeah.
We couldn't actually touch the rail on the back end of it because you would get electrocuted. So it kind of had
that's health and safety.
I heard about this. I never saw it in practice.
Yeah, I did. But the same guy who showed off that was actually one of the guys that invented the PCI bus back then. So I actually attended a talk that he did on how they invented the PCI bus inside of Compaq back then. And I'm guessing it's not that similar in version 7 as it was in version 1. I'm guessing the letters are the only thing that's pretty much common, the commonality between them. But it's as with everything else, it's evolving, right? So
if you're interested in bus level hardware architecture, low level firmware architecture, and things like that, go out and look at what the latest specs. It's all public out there with the committees that have it. Look up some of the Gen 7 stuff that's going on, and it will give you some hints towards what to expect in the next few years. Yeah. I'll give you a hint and a wink that if you have an imagination, you can kind of pick up on where things are going, because some of the upper constraints we can't really we're not ready to understand quite yet. Oh. So heads up.
But on the same part, we also need to ensure that our actual networking also is on the same level here, because I'm still seeing a lot of customers doing 10 gig and 25 or 40 gig Ethernet, and that's not going to be enough really, really soon.
Yeah, I've got to say, it does seem like networking stalled, because networking went from 1 gig to 10 gig, and that's a slow step. Mm-hmm. That took ages. So let's say, for example, we're on 10 gig for virtually everything these days. The step to 25 gig appears to be even slower.
And no one uses
like nobody wants to go.
It's proprietary, but it's 40.
No, or 40 then. But even then, still people
Cisco customers maybe. But
rushing.
That's the only one.
Yeah. But that surprises me, because I thought they would keep pace, but they really haven't.
So let me ask you a question, Tony. We've always, for the past 20, 30 years, we've always dealt with one thing was always the bottleneck at any given time. It was either the CPU, the hard drive capacities and performance, or the network. Yep. What is the bottleneck right now? Because in my mind, they've all kind of leveled off, and we don't really have one silver bullet thing that's like holding everybody back right now. We got massive chiplet-based CPUs. We've got massive GPUs coming from multiple vendors. Arguably, NVIDIA holds sway there. And we've got massive 400, 800 gig networking from both NVIDIA and Cisco. And others.
I think if we're talking,
what's the bottleneck right now in your opinion?
If we're talking the train AI level, there isn't one, is there? At the end of the day, they're throwing so much data over such a fast link. But I think the majority of our customers don't do anything like that level of stuff. So
InfiniBand's kind of hitting some of its upper limits. So I think we're going to have to figure out how to push this Ethernet thing even further. And to Christian's point, like I look at this as like, I think networking is the big hurdle to tackle next. I think we figured out CPU design and scale. I think I trust NVIDIA to do what they do with GPUs. Like, I'm not going to try and second guess them, but like networking, we need some more innovative companies. I'm looking at you, Microtik, Alta Labs, various vendors that are out there that can come out with some enterprise grade stuff that can push the boundaries of what Ethernet's capable of. Because I think Cisco's is comfortable, and I think NVIDIA is distracted. Like, they're doing the switching stuff mainly for their own stuff. It's self-serving, right? So we need a more agnostic approach to just hybrid networking, Ethernet-based stuff from some of these other vendors that are out there to develop some of these.
Broadcom might be one of them.
Well, Broadcom, everybody will use Broadcom for the ASICs or the CPUs, sure, and there's always the other guys that are out there too. So,
we need the Junipers of this world to come up and sort of kick Cisco's ass a little bit, or something else on those lines. So other providers to actually step in and prove that they can do it, but a lot cheaper, I think, is the key thing. The reason that people haven't jumped from 10 gig to 25 gig or 40 gig, whatever you is it's cost. It's so expensive, and they're not prepared to change their data center.
Not really,
but yeah.
In the grand scheme of things, it's not really that expensive.
Only if they're seeing if their current network is bottlenecking, and that's the reason, then they'll take the leap. But if the average 10 gig network isn't bottlenecking, then they won't change it. Why would you? Why would you spend money on something that isn't actually causing you an issue? At
this point in the game, if you're still sitting there on 10 gig, skip straight to 100, at least for your core switching, right? At least have one line card in your core chassis that's going to have 100 gig set of uplinks on it for all of your distribution layer and all of your leafs to basically bring in 10, 25, 40 into a core switch, because you got to start there. You can trickle down the rest of it over time. You can swap out the interface cards on your servers over time, but at least get your core up to 100 gig, because that's where you're going to see the most benefit from it.
100 is a minimum, basically.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. I wonder how much 100 gig switch costs.
You can get 400 now on PCI 5, right? So if we're looking at 7, we'll at least see a doubling, if not 3 times 400. So 1.2 gigs, I'm envisioning that would be where we're going with this with PCI 7. So
Right. Okay. Well, with that bombshell, which is essentially go and buy a new Switch, I think we're calling it there, are we? So I've got to say thanks very much, everybody, for joining in. It's been a great, very fun conversation, and it's going to be a very exciting year, assuming we all survive it on the basis of what we've been talking about. So thank you, Nick. Yes, exactly. It's not quite Judgment Day, but it's not a no. Okay, thank you, Christian and Christian. It's been great again to have you around. So I suppose Nick, if you can, we would love to have you back again at some point if you want to come in. You're more than welcome to do so. It'd be great fun.
Absolutely. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas to everyone, and look forward to seeing what you all do in 2025.